Hello, and welcome to the Flowers and the Wild. I'm your host, Ajna Flowers, and normally Ravena Wyld, of course, would be here with me as my co-host. However, she has had a little bit of a flare, not a little bit, a MS flare, and she had to go get an MRI today. So she is home resting. And I am so excited because my special, very special guest today is Jordan, who happens to also be my son. Jordan, thank you so much for being here today with us.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes. So it's just so wonderful to see your face again. So I want to share a quote before I get into what we're going to be talking about, because I think that everyone at one point or another, at least one time in their life, has had this feeling about a situation that has happened. There are moments which mark your life, moments when you realize that nothing will ever be the same again. And time is divided between before this and after this. And that, I looked it up because I was like, I wonder who wrote that, because that's so, very profound statement. It is from the movie Fallen, 1998. Denzel Washington was the actor that played John Hobbs, and that is who made that quote, something that now a lot of people use in their life. So, when we were little and seeing the world, like for the very first time through these brand new eyes, it was so amazing and awe-inspiring and wonder. You were just full of childlike wonder, because it was like there were new things. There were all these new things to see and smell and taste and music and soft little kittens and all these amazing things that you are experiencing for the very first time in your life. But then there comes a point, and for some people it's childhood, some people it's when they're older, and for some people there's several things that kind of happen that quote fits that situation. So when I was 4 years old on New Year's Eve, our church family would always have a game night, and then there'd be a service, and and we bring in the new year. And then then the kids though would go out and play during game time and when the service was. And so I had gone out to play, and it was super cold, and I was standing on the church steps. And what I remember is that I saw the design of the frost on that railing. And so I was like, oh, that's pretty. I'm going to like that. Although I was talking to Grandma today about that, and she said that the older kids had been out there like taunting me and, encouraging me to do it. And I said to her, well, maybe the reason the design sticks out so much was I didn't want to do it, but that was the thing that I noticed, the detail that I noticed. It was like, that's pretty. So maybe it won't be so bad. Terrifying. And that's, I know that because I not as bad now, but I used to be extremely claustrophobic. And I do feel like that, being stuck like that, not having any idea that was what was going to happen, and being 4 years old. It was just like such a shock. And then I didn't like water, like in my face. Grandma said that I was the only one of the children that she'd put me in the bathtub and have to just wash me up and get me out. And I wanted to be in my pajamas and put in bed. I did not want to have anything to do with it. Well, there I am on the church steps with my tongue stuck on the railing. And one of the board members I'm not saying he wasn't a nice man, but he just wasn't someone I felt super comfortable with anyway, in general. And so he came out with a big pitcher of tepid water and poured it over my tongue, my face. So I'm just like, here I am stuck. And now I have water in my face that I had no control of. So as that tiny little 4-year-old girl, I was just like, everything from that point on was like, this is not a wonderful place. This is a terrifying place. Everything about this is scary because now something that I saw that was pretty and I didn't think was going to do that did. So there is literally anything at any point could surprise me from anywhere. And so I just started living this really fearful, safe existence on one hand. But as I got older, that started to like manifest in like risky, impulsive. So on one hand, I was terrified of everything. On the other hand, oh well, so it was just this weird place that I resided for a number of years. I always forget to do this at the beginning. I do want to give a trigger warning because we are talking about really sensitive things. I just want everyone to be aware that there may be some topics that might trigger things a little bit. Like we told you last week, if you do feel like it's not something you can listen to right now, I would encourage you to just put this podcast away for a little bit, and then maybe later on, just come back in and listen to it, and you might be at a different place at that point. But as we also brought up, and Ravena really brought the point home, that your trauma often, when it's triggered, is your source, your higher power, your soul saying to you, you need to pay attention to this. Because this is an area that while these other areas you've been working on, because this is how you feel when you're confronted with this is something you need to start really paying attention to. Because there is a root to this feeling, and that is where you need to go. Don't pay attention to the symptoms. You have to delve deeper into the root. What have you experienced that in your journey? Finding that, where are you at this point with those kind of things?
So, I absolutely have. I'd say the most recent experience was my last relapse and then getting into recovery. So I definitely can look back. That was like a year and 2 months ago. I can definitely look back and see what it was like before and what it's like after, and how dramatically different it is now.
Right.
Now, before, I feel like I was able to kind of rest on my laurels per se. Just kind of,
Your persona,
yeah. And I was comfortable with how life was, and
what you had created for the puppy.
yeah,
Basically. Yeah.
and I was happy with it. I was content as long as I was able to keep that up. Um, and I kind of always joke, like, as soon as you put your dirty laundry on the front page of the newspaper, there's really not much you're willing to hide anymore. And that's kind of the after recovery, after that rock bottom. Now where I truly am who I am, and I'm willing to tell anyone anything about me because I don't have to keep it a secret anymore, right? It's not me trying to hide any part of my life or make it seem like it's something else.
Right. And what I'm realizing too in that is those parts of me that I was, using alcohol or pain pills or whatever to try to make myself okay with, a lot of those things were not bad things about me. They were things that I had come to believe were truths about me that weren't. Simply
Right.
absolutely were not the facts of who I am. It was either implied or spoken, this is what makes people react in a happy way. And this is what makes them react in a not happy way. So very young, you learn the reward is over on this side where I am doing things that make them happy. And the punishment is over on this side where I do things that upset them. So we'll just pretend like that doesn't exist, which is your voice. It's your magic. It's your creativity. It's all the things that make you individually you that we feel like, even very young, that we have to put certain things away in order to fit into our family, our town, our state, our country, our world, the society, the culture we're in. So I call it a birth mask. We're all given a birth mask that is our family's birth mask. This is what that child will be taught in order to coexist in this particular family. And so you finally get to the place where the addictions and this and that, and you're like, wait a minute, that's all of this is that mask that I didn't realize had been put on before I could have any memories of anything. So my only memories is me only being this with that birth mask. And then all of a sudden you're like, that is not me. Yeah. That's not me. That is, so then you start going through your life and it's like, okay, well, if that's not me, and this is not what I was taught to believe about things, doesn't ring true at all to me anymore, then something has to shift. And so that's when you're like, well, then we get to the bottom. We look for the roots. We look for where that originated, and we deal with that part of the persona. Because anything negative, and I apologize that I have said negative things to you that you probably thought at one point was who you were. But anything that we believe negatively about our very being, someone else told us. At some point, someone, and that doesn't mean it was our parents or whatever, someone told us something or acted in such a way that was the reason. Back to the Flowers and the Wild. I am your host, Ajna Flowers, and we had some technical difficulties, but we are back now. And so I'm going to ask Jordan to go ahead and continue talking about masking and masking agents, and also just share a little bit of your experience of, what the last few years have been for you, if you don't mind, Jordan.
Absolutely. So where to start? In working this program, this Narcotics Anonymous modality of recovery, I learned a lot about not only masking but masking agents. Athletes get caught cheating, doping up, not always because of that the whatever drug they used to cheat was detectable, but because of what it did in their system, raise proteins, things like that, and that's what got them caught.
Right.
So, in that same sense, with my masking, my main mask was like everything's fine, but my masking agents then were my drug use, alcohol use, anything else that I could cover up to make it look like everything's fine, right? So it wasn't necessarily the mask itself; it was just another mask on top.
Right, and it was there was that feeling inside you that it's like it feels like something is missing, and then you do whatever substance, whatever drug of choice, you do that, and it's like, whoa, that was magic. For that amount of time, I didn't have to think about any of that, and I actually felt pretty happy, and everything felt. So when you first start, and I don't know if you have heard Alan Watts talk about that, but he said the reason that happens is that substance accidentally awakens you. it isn't the substance itself that does it, but accidentally in that use, what you awaken. So you feel alive. You feel, wow, I can think, this feels better than what I've been trying to fill this up with. This feels like the solution. So you can talk yourself into being like, it's really okay that I take up to 14 hydrocodone a day because I'm functioning better. I'm, I, I just feel better. So how can anybody tell me that this is not good for me? Until things start happening that you're like, damn, this is not enough. And then you are caught in this loop of, oh, I don't ever want to feel this way again. And I'm never going to use again because I don't want to feel this way. And then it vacillates between feeling that way and then, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm going to do because I don't have anything and I really need something. And although I hate doing it, I feel like I don't have a choice right now because everything inside me is like, this is what's going to make you feel better. So why aren't you doing that? So then you do, and then you go back to, and it's this vicious game of guilt and shame that just plays over and over and over in a loop. In order to feel better about feeling guilty, you do the thing, and then you feel shame for doing the thing, which then makes you feel guilty, which then makes you do the thing. And that's why you say if you're trying, but the problem is you're trying to get that same effect that you had. And from that point where it turns on you, and you're like, that whole part of addiction for myself, at least, was searching for that feeling.
Right. Absolutely.
And it's like, well, if this amount isn't doing it, then maybe, if I've drank 9 Mike's Harder Lemonades today, maybe tomorrow 14 will make me feel better. And,
Absolutely.
and we both know. And anyone who has been caught in that spiral or is caught in that spiral, even right now at this moment, I know what that feels like. Jordan knows what that feels like. But we're also here to say that when we really decided to give it over to our higher power, whatever name you have given that in your life, and just allow life to do what life does, like an ocean does what an ocean does, and realize that this was what I could control. Whatever this was going to be doing or saying or feeling or whatever, that was what I had control over. And anything else outside of that wasn't even my business to know how to fix it because I don't have the resources or the knowledge or anything to fix some things, the majority of things that happen outside of me. So therefore, either we fight that and keep using and keep doing it, thinking we're going to get a different outcome, which is the definition of insanity, until all of a sudden it's like something happens that this event was worse, made us feel worse than what the emptiness that caused us to start using in the first place.
Right.
There was that before this and after this.
Yeah.
And so that it's so important to remember that, though, that there is an after. There is an after. And I love that we took that time apart because as heartbreaking and, for both of us, I'm sure, just for different reasons, it was necessary for you and I to get to a place that we were connecting on this level, not, on day drinking.
Yeah.
Or shot, whatever in the bed. It's in the bed. So I feel like, I just feel like I just want you to just really share a little bit about things that have gone on in your life and the way that you have worked the program, the recovery, to keep yourself within these safety nets that and safety nets that I know I have to have in place.
Yeah.
Non-negotiable. That will not be a part of my life because not a big part. I don't even crave it anymore, but I mostly never want to have to quit something again.
Yeah.
Never going to go through that again. And so that if I ever and I haven't at this point, but if I ever get to the point where it's like, oh, I'm sure one will be fine. Okay. All right, but well, if it's not, you're gonna have to quit doing it again. So how do you feel about that? I'm not going to do this again. I don't think that survived for very long.
Absolutely.
Letting my body back to a place where it hasn't, it's not filled. And all of that. Like I feel like my body at this point too, if I did, it'd be like, he's out.
Yeah.
Done, because you knew what you were supposed to do, and yeah, this was dumb, real
Mhm.
dumb. You know,
Well, like I
to
always say, like
very blunt.
I have another relapse in me, but I don't have another recovery. Right?
Exactly.
Relapse, I can absolutely relapse again. That
Oh,
makes total sense. But
and
I'm
it's
not gonna
good.
recover again.
But because I know that about myself at this point, I'm like, okay, well, you know what? I don't put myself in situations that could potentially make me want to do those things. That
Absolutely.
because like I love karaoke. I love karaoke.
Uh-huh.
But I'm not going to go into a bar to do karaoke. That it's not I mean, I sing here, when I'm irritated, I will either say, "Oh, that's so silly. That is just so darn silly that that's happening." Well, I will sing my frustration, and I'm sorry, but I some pretty good rhymes coming out of me on the spot. If you try to do it on, for someone like Ravena,
Yeah.
I'm like, I do know how to rhyme. Apparently, I just have to be really centered, just rhyme, like, just come out, so, But anyway, I want you to go ahead and share, whatever you feel like you are supposed to share. Because we know with the difficulties that this is supposed to be out here and someone
Right.
needs to hear this. So
So I don't know my exact time, but I think I'm like 1 year, 2 months. It'll be 1 year and 3 months on the 27th of March. Um,
great.
I think one of the big important things is our literature set has this great line. It says, "We had the disease of addiction, not a moral deficiency." And there was a big part of me that in my recovery, needed to be reminded that I wasn't a bad person, right? And that the things that I did were due to the disease of addiction. Um, but deep down, the root of myself, as we've talked, was not bad. They
Right.
were the
Right.
child. They were the inner child that was feeling abandoned and ignored. Um, and so, in my recovery, and with understanding the inner child exists, and kind of now it opening up, kind of freeing itself, being able to come to the surface from what it wasn't before.
Right.
It's been really interesting to navigate life. There are times when life happens, things that are not great, and my
Mhm.
inner child wants to come out, and I have to recognize my inner child and say, "Hey, I know you're just like that hurt 7-year-old trying to stand up for yourself, but I got
Exactly.
this. Like I got this."
Exactly. Sometimes I just have to be like, I know that you are trying to get my attention right now, but you see what I'm doing. So let me finish what I'm doing, and then
Hmm.
I will give you all of my attention, little missy. Because right now you're kind of irritated. So I need to back off a little bit. But
Absolutely.
someone brought it to my attention, like when things just you spill stuff and your belt loop gets hooked on a door handle, and all those kind of things. She said to me, "You do know what that is, right?" And I said, "Well, it's annoying. I know that." And she said, "That's you as a child." Because for
Mm.
some reason at that point, your inner child feels like she needs your attention. And so that is her way of saying, hey, I'm over here and you're not paying attention. So now I'm going to spill your purse all over the ground. It's a
Right.
tantrum,
Yep.
and when you start realizing that there is an inner child that needs to be nurtured and help grow into their full potential, you realize that. Because all of us have, I think, for myself, I have ages where something happened that I stopped. It's like I stopped at that age. And so here I am, gonna be 58. Can you believe that? Um, in June, and I still go there,
Right.
you know?
That's
So
something that they talk about. Well, when the age you really started using the most is kind of when you stopped emotionally. And
right.
so, I didn't really start going hard until my later teens, but I could tell last year about this time going through life that I was responding, my emotions were responding like a 17-year-old, a 16-year-old. And I was like, we're going to learn how to respond like an adult. But after the first reaction was like, throw a fit like a teenager.
Yeah. No, it really is.
Go
You're
my
like,
way.
and then don't you too think, I don't know, I feel like at the age that I am, I should not be acting or feeling like I want to act that way the majority of the time. And then it's all of a sudden, it's like, well, that's because I didn't, that part of me, that part of my psyche was stuck right there.
Yep.
And like me getting my tongue stuck was what caused fear in my life. Um, when Charity was born, I mean, it was a very joyful time, but it was also, I mean, I was very young when it all happened. I am the youngest, the baby of the family, and then all of that started. So there is that part of me that stopped in 1981 while the rest of me grew up and started, having children and not knowing how to live in a healthy mind space and having mental illness that I didn't realize was there for a significant amount of time. Or it was affecting things the way it did. And I'm not saying, well, because I had mental illness that I, was a shitty man from to whatever years.
Uh-huh.
However, the facts are this is not right in my brain did play a very significant role in the choices I made when I was put in a devastating situation.
100%. Yeah.
And because I didn't know how to handle it, even though my children were also in that situation with me, I felt like the safest thing I could do after our life completely fell apart was to take them to my parents because I knew they'd be taken care of. I knew they'd be so loved and safe because I knew I was not. I had nothing because I wasn't even sure if I was going to make it through. And I was like, and I have to try to figure out how to make it okay for them to get through this too. And so I took you guys to grandma and grandpa, and I just kind of started desperately looking for someone or something to make me feel like I wasn't unlovable.
Hmm.
So,
I mean,
anyways,
it's really interesting, and this is another time when you can, how it was before and how it is after is, now that I'm 36, a lot more stuff makes sense to me than it did when I was 9.
what? What?
I can see your point of view, and I can see the things that happened. I mean, it makes sense and it checks out. Like I would feel like I'd do the same thing if I was in that same situation, right?
Yeah.
Like,
And that's the thing. Like I think I talked on the podcast before we started the Becoming Ravena. Sorry, there's a siren. Because there always is. Um, but I had talked. I'm sorry. With that, sorry. What did you say? What were you talking about? I apologize. I'm distracted.
Uh,
Well, you understand things.
yeah.
It's like I've been thinking about that a lot lately, and Graham and I were talking about that earlier today. That you only can understand the situation you're seeing from the viewpoint of the eyes and age that you are. So, as situations that adults understand to a child is going to look completely different and traumatic and scary and, you know, like when I threw the checkbook.
Mhm.
I was just frustrated, and you never forget it.
Yeah. Sure.
Because you need to go.
No,
Oh, okay.
I was just
Okay.
gonna. I was just gonna tell Marissa to take Coraline with her if she was
Oh,
going outside.
okay.
Um, that's she can wake up. She needs to go out and be a protective dog. Not walk out there. Go. Anyway, uh, huh? Okay, well she can run after you, or you can just leave Russ up. Um, the other thing that I was gonna mention is that's helped a lot is the program I work has 12 steps.
Mhm.
Um, there is one of my favorites is the fourth step, and it's that we took a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. And so in that you end up making a list of everyone that you've harmed. Now you don't look at their side, you don't look how they've harmed you. You only look at your side of it. And like if you find yourself casting judgment about what they did, like nope, stop right there because you gotta it's like
Yeah,
think
you do
about
a
it, pray about
reset.
it.
You do a reset.
And
Yeah.
and so in doing that and really just seeing the roles that I have played and taken apart or taken away my bias the best I can with the help of a power greater than myself.
Right.
It really does open up more to see, times when I even thought I was right. I was wrong. Like there was times before I would have done a four step that I would have died on that hill thinking I
Oh,
was right. But then after doing it, I'm like, ooh, I was not right.
there was right. And it's like you are like, there, I did have some responsibility
Yeah.
in that because regardless of how someone acted toward me, I still am responsible for how I react or respond. So if I do that in a negative way, that is my responsibility to be like, hey,
Hmm.
regardless of what happened, how I approached you was absolutely not okay. And I am so sorry for that. And I am saying that sincerely to you. I did it. I mean, it was a hill I'm going to die on, but I didn't do things the way I should have done, and I didn't say the things I should have said, and the universe was like, "Well, you guys need a break anyway, so just
Well, I mean, and I
go
can
to your
say the same.
corners,
I mean,
go to your
I
corners."
absolutely see the self-centeredness of my ego and whatnot in the past and what we've gone through of it reaching out and acting out, as I'll say. Um, that fourth step though, it's really a good step. It helps me stay clean. If I start getting a resentment and start I've been dealing with a resentment for the past few weeks, um, towards a past relationship. And, I've been kind of ignoring it. I've just been like, it's okay. It'll be
Right,
fine. Like, I'll just ignore it or whatever. Just say I'm over it.
right,
But over a few weeks, all of a sudden it starts building up and I start getting grumpy and start sassing like everybody, get
right,
judgmental and just like for no reason other than I'm not handling this problem that I have internally.
right,
Um, and so that's one way that has really helped me actively stay clean. And something I actively have to do is just keep tabs on that and make sure I'm squashing any of those before they get
right,
used over it. I mean, if all of a sudden, if I'm thinking about this relationship too much, then all of a sudden I start glorifying, like, those days drinking were actually pretty fun. And I forget about the hangover and anything else the
right,
next day. All I think
right.
about is like, man, I had some good times. I could use
Well,
that
and the thing
happiness.
is, the brain is very selective on things because it's like its job is to protect us. So when a relationship it ends like that and it was the way it was, our brain tries to make us feel better by by reminding us, well, what about this good thing? And
Mhm.
how about this time you guys did this? And so it's like we're negative blind almost to
Yeah.
things in the relationship that got us to the place that we're no longer in it. And so you have to capture that and be like, okay, yeah, those were nice, but not nice enough to could go back to the baby. Nothing was nice enough to ever make it worth doing that again.
Well, and it's like you talked about like quitting drinking. Um, if I don't remember to remember what it was like the days that I was up for 3 days and couldn't sleep, and then like was up for another 2 days trying to sleep and weighed 132 pounds at my height. Like if I don't remember actively to remember that, it's very easy for me to slip into this life of just glorifying what was. But when I think
That
about those times, like waking up and hearing the bird, or not going to sleep and looking at like seeing the light come through the window and hearing birds outside, like that still makes me feel nauseous thinking about that. So like I
right.
need to keep remembering that part of it. I need to
It was
remember
so
that.
interesting when you just said that before you even said it makes you feel nauseous. When you said, and I see, and I see the sun come up and hear the birds, and I'm thinking, and I haven't even thought about going to sleep yet. And
Yeah.
oh, no, 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 no,
Got
no.
work in like an hour.
Like, no,
Oh,
I can't imagine. I can't imagine feeling like after being where I am now, every feeling like that would be the answer. Like I told you that one time, there's not been one situation since I quit drinking. Well, it'll be 6 years in October. It'll be that I've thought. I think that this really frustrating, anxiety-causing situation would be so much better if I poured some alcohol in it.
absolutely. Yeah.
Never. There's never been a point where I'm like, "Oh, that will make it better."
Yeah.
Because as as addicts, we can stop for a little while and not really fix anything because then when something happens in our life again, the default is, I know if I do this, I will feel better.
Hmm.
I know it's not going to make the situation as a whole any better, and it will potentially make it worse depending on what it is. But I really feel like the only way I'm going to get through this is if I'm using whatever.
Yeah.
So that also steps in where it's like the logical, sensible side person inside of you is like, really?
Hmm.
Oh, I don't think you remembering that correctly because
Yeah.
because even not like I don't want to drink, but I would kind of like this social boost that a buzz gives you. And
Yeah.
so if I do miss it, that's what I miss. But I now am at a place where I am like have I'm my energy is vibrating at such a place that there is nothing that I have used outside of me that has ever felt like this radiance that just is there now.
Absolutely.
And now that I know what that feels like, when I start getting into the stupid stuff, the silly stuff,
Hmm.
I'm just like, okay, we're not going to react because this literally has no bearing on your life other than it's just it's just taking up time you don't want to mess with.
Yeah.
Is it? So
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, and then other than that, I mean, I know previous episodes were on spiritual awakening. Um, in our 12 steps says as a result of these steps, we did a spiritual awakening, and then try to carry these principles in all of our affairs. Something like that. I think I butchered it. Um,
It was a
so
good paraphrase.
yeah. So I can attest to that as being a way to have a spiritual awakening. I think there are multiple ways.
Right.
Um, and for me, it was pretty subtle, but I could I could tell when it happened because people said, "Man, you look different in your eyes.
Yeah.
Your eyes are lighter." And then I noticed that kind of in the rooms as well with newcomers. They'd come in the first few days, they're rough, and then 6 months later, all of a sudden they got bright eyes and they're
Right.
happy, and you're like, "Wow, like that's." And then it's like, "What's changed?" And they're like, "Nothing, just my outlook and my spiritual life." And
Right. And it's interesting because when it really happened for me, it was actually between Christmas and New Year's Eve, just this past, that I really, because I've been working for like 10 and a half years for this spiritual awakening that has nothing to do with religion and just, that just is my own m- meeting myself, who I truly am. And, so it was so interesting because it was like I had worked so hard and I had done so much research and meditation, all that. And it was like like you said, subtle. It was such a simple, like, oh, okay,
hmm
okay. And it's like, I remember feeling this way before anything in the world made me afraid of it.
yeah,
And that's where we go back to in that spiritual awakening because that's where your child like wonder resides. That's where all those shadow things that you put away because it made you uniquely you, and that's where your magic is. But there were people that either said or implied that that was not a good point to show.
yeah,
So you put it over there, and then all of a sudden you start looking at all that, and you're like, I just like covered it up. I didn't destroy it. I didn't damage my soul beyond repair. I have a soul because I spent a lot of time thinking, I don't know. Maybe I don't even believe in souls. Maybe I'm just
hmm
here. So, I mean, I do obviously. And I have to always remember no matter how something makes me feel, my eternal soul has not been damaged by the trauma.
right,
My eternal soul has just been waiting there. And now I just kind of turn everything into kind of a game. When I start
yeah,
being ridiculous, I'm just like, okay, now it's time to get myself to taking some deep breaths, just stupid
yeah,
things. Because now I've distracted myself from going into this loop or spiral that I absolutely know will take me nowhere good.
yeah, definitely,
Whether I'm thinking something about someone else or being self critical to myself, neither one of those are edifying to anyone. So
right.
that's my goal to always be edifying.
I think about um with spiritual awakening, and not to bring up the Bible per se, but there's that story in the Bible where he's listening for God's voice and the storm comes through and the fire comes through and it's just in the whisper,
Right.
right? And so, I mean, I think that can be relevant to anyone for
Absolutely.
anything when you're looking for
Very
something.
relevant things in the Bible. I will
Yeah,
absolutely say
absolutely.
that. Yes.
And I mean, I think that can be relevant to anybody who believes in anything. It's we're always looking for these huge signs, but like, the dramatic change in my life didn't happen overnight. It happened over this last year, right? And it was work. I put
Right.
in the work for it, working the steps, writing on it.
And
Narcotics Anonymous
keeping your
has a
mind
workbook.
captive, which is also from the Bible. Keep, you know,
Right.
keep your mind captive because after listening to Alan Watts, one of the things he brings up is that mind part of the brain he felt like was an involuntary action of the organ of the brain. And that is why it is so hard to keep ourselves on track with what is best for us because that involuntary part of the organ always goes back to that default. And our job in capturing that is capturing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Narcotics Anonymous has a step working guide. And I leaned on it heavy in my first year, but in the first step, our life we begun I become a manageable when we're powerless over addiction. It has 69 questions it wants you to answer about how your life. is unmanageable. And so anytime I was going through a struggle of any sort, I would just jump into that book and start answering questions in a sense of
Right,
keeping my thoughts captive. I'm like, this is what I need to focus on. This is a growth I
right.
need. And so things like that were super important, super helpful. Still are. I still am going through it now, but not as fast as I was going through it the first time. Third time.
Well, and I think the thing too that is really important to stress that, when you start, when you have a spiritual awakening, it doesn't mean that you are never gonna feel pissed off or even react in a way that you probably shouldn't. It doesn't mean that. It just means that what used to take you, what took you years to realize you were doing, now, as soon as it happens, you're like, nope, absolutely not. No, I do not live there anymore. That straw has been torn off and bound. So that is not anything that I even had in my life because, as far as I know, it doesn't even exist anymore. So either you be nice to yourself or just be quiet.
Well, and if I'm ever confused about what spiritual principle I need to practice, my higher power gave me a great way to know it's always the one that I least want to do. So if
Exactly.
I'm not feeling like forgiving, I'm like, darn it, I gotta forgive. That's the one, things like that.
Right.
And so, um, just keeping that in mind through my day to day life.
Right. And also that applies also because um that just goes in general for life.
Hmm.
That's a good principle to live by for life,
Yeah.
too. So,
Yeah.
well,
As soon as I
anyway,
find myself not wanting to do it, I know I need to do it.
well, right, right, because that is, and that's your ego stepping in, being like, oh, have you really had any problems lately?
Hmm.
And it's like, well, the fact that my ego is presenting that as a question tells me right there that there's something here I need to delve a little deeper into.
Yeah. 100%.
So, yeah. Well, is there anything else that you really would like to put out there before we close tonight?
Just, if you struggle with any sort of addiction, whether it be drugs, alcohol, work, pornography, any of that kind of stuff, Narcotics Anonymous is a great group that can help you out. And I highly recommend reaching out.
Yep. And as far for me, I just wanted to say again that I am not a licensed counselor. I don't know, as far as Jordan, your credentials in that area. Yeah, we're not licensed counselors, but we have the experience education that it's like, and I think that therapy is an amazing tool, and I highly recommend it to just about everybody, honestly. Just because sometimes it's just nice to have somebody to talk to.
Hmm.
However, I think that what I have learned through this is that what I thought I had to do or be in order to achieve these certain things are not. It's not. It's the fact it's the willingness to say there are things very toxic about myself. Regardless of the toxicity of anyone else around me, my responsibility is to fix the toxic behavior in myself so that it no longer harms people. That is my responsibility. And so when that behavior tries to show up again, I'm like, what are you doing? That's why would you want to do something that would hurt people? Oh, and importantly also yourself. So no, that even if it seems like the easy way or the fast fix, there is not a fast fix. And anything, and as cliche as this is, anything worth having in your life is not going to happen fast. You know, any work that you do. I'm not saying that things like you're working on something for quite a large amount of time, and then you wake up one morning and it's like, oh, which then people could be, oh, that was an overnight thing. But it's not. It is work, and it's not anything. I feel like it's so important to stress that progress is progress. So if you lost your shit and reacted so horribly, but it took you 15 seconds to be like, no, 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 no. I need to go figure out what to do or give that person space or whatever, but no, that, and you stop it. You don't. You will end up going down roads you have been down and you know they're horrible, but because you decided that you wanted to go that way and not deal with the things that were making you think this was the solution. Because anytime you can turn your mind around, that is progress.
Hmm. I was gonna say, failure is just experience disguised, right?
Yes,
So anytime you fail, you're just getting more experience to help you further on. And when you're looking at
exactly.
progress, there's gonna be times where it feels like it's just failure after failure after failure, but really you're just gaining more experience to be able to go further next time.
Right. And it also gives you like with the podcast, for instance, like we're learning along the way. I just ordered like mics for us and lights and, because I'm learning along the way how to do that. And at some point in my life, and you probably can attest to this, I would have been like, well, this is too much. And I don't know how to do it. It's a failure. I'm just not going to do it. And it's like everything that happens is something that now I know how to do.
Mm-hmm.
Why would I stop now? Because so many people stop doing something because they're new at it, thinking they're bad at it, but have not even ever tried it for long enough to know if they're bad at it yet. Because they
Absolutely.
never get past being uncomfortably new.
Mm-hmm.
And you just have to push through that and decide, is this something that is important enough to me that I will go to this uncomfortable place until it is no longer an uncomfortable place for me.
Yep.
So
100%.
yeah, well,
And for me, that looked like rehab. For other people, it
exactly,
looks like other things. So,
exactly. So, and that's the thing is we all are on this journey, but everyone's journey has, different actors, different scenery, but it's that we're still on that, serendipitous orchestrated path. So,
mhm.
well, Jordan, I am so, so, so happy that you were able to join me. And I'm really thankful we were able to get connected again. I want to thank you all so much for being here. And I want to send out healing vibes to Ravena, and she is very missed. And I just want to thank you so, so much again for being here and joining us on the Flowers and the Wild. We look forward to seeing you next time.